Suppose you take a bunch of people who work in organisations, put them in a room and ask them, what do you think excellence looks like? Would you be surprised if they said things like, well, being customer driven, with great processes, inspiring leadership, and succeeding through amazing people? Well, of course you wouldn't. All nice words. But as Deming would say, the question is, by what method? Behind any method is theory. Our ideas about why good is good. We may, for example, believe inspiring leadership means being good at setting direction, being a good communicator, being a good listener, or being charismatic, or being all of these things. We may believe that having great processes means compliance with ISO 9000, or having process leaders. We may believe that being customer driven means employing devices like Net Promoter Score, customer satisfaction surveys, and so on. The point is a simple one. If we ask people what good looks like, we'll get answers that tell us more about how they think and how they've been socialised, taught about management, rather than what actually works. It's worse, in fact, than that. The bunch who spend their time defining good will run the risk of believing themselves. If they all think ISO 9000 is essential for good processes, there'll be no one saying, well, hold on a minute, is that really true? To quote Deming again, experience is often mistakenly believed to be the same as knowledge. So our bunch of people sitting in a room thinking about what excellence looks like will think about it from their current point of view. It can only be thus, and their conclusions will, in Deming's terms, be a representation of the prevailing style of management. Of course, the bunch of people who have in fact been doing this will argue that they've been challenging each other and reviewing their thoughts over the years, and indeed the excellence model has changed. It first appeared in 1992 and has been the subject of improvement reviews ever since. But the current 2010 version contains many of the thinking problems we first saw in 1992. Before we get into that, think about the organisational consequences of the excellence movement. It has spawned departments whose job it is to become experts in the excellence model, to be facilitators in conducting assessments and building action plans, to be active contributors to the improvements to the model, and advocates for it. The excellence business has spawned a veritable bureaucracy of excellence activities which consume enormous amounts of time and resources. But will it lead us to excellence? For those who are new arrivals to the excellence business, finding out what it's all about requires reading the manuals, the outputs of the specifications arm of the excellence bureaucracy. You may find yourself mesmerised by the plausible promises associated with what are described as the fundamental concepts of excellence, which include adding value for customers, managing by processes, leading with vision, inspiration and integrity, and so on. But if you have your critical thinking detector on, you may worry about phrases like achieving balanced results and succeeding through people. Take the first, achieving balanced results. The notion of balance is a conventional management idea. The most commonly expressed example is the idea that we must balance cost and quality. This is a falsehood based on conventional management's obsession with cost. In the excellence model, we're encouraged to think of balanced as meaning balancing financial and non-financial results and balancing long and short-term stakeholder needs. You can imagine the activity in the workshops that ensue, identifying the various stakeholders, their needs, the financial and non-financial measures that need to be included or developed, and maybe investing lots of time in developing a new measurement system, which of course, according to the guidance, will require clear targets to be set, which can then be benchmarked against others. What do we see in the guidance about the perils of conventional financial management? Nothing. What do we see in the guidance about how arbitrary measures can only serve to sub-optimise performance? Nothing. Take the second, succeeding through people. The guidance tells you we should set targets for key results in people's perceptions of their organisation and their engagement, involvement and empowerment. Surveys, focus groups, interviews and appraisals are encouraged as the means to get the data, and leadership behaviour, communications and training should be focused on as the means for improvement. Again, think of all the activity that follows, a tsunami of data collection through surveys, focus groups and so on, with plans for improvement and associated targets and timetables for execution. What do we see in the guidance about the simple truth that people's performance is governed by the system? Nothing. Worse, we see guidance that encourages system conditions that can only serve to undermine or distract from performance, let alone excellence. Those were just two examples. I encourage budding systems thinkers to review the guidance offered by the EFQM to identify its theories in use. How many command and control assumptions can you find in the guidance? It should be no surprise that we find many. The architects of the excellence model are products of the prevailing style of management. If you employ the excellence model, you'll have validity problems with the assessment phase. By assessing your organisation against the precepts of the model, have you gained a valid view of the what and why of performance? The fastest way to appreciate how much assessment fails in this regard is to take an area of the business that's recently been assessed and study it as a system. This reveals a completely different picture. You also discover something else, that successive groups who study their organisation as a system come to the same conclusions, the reliability issue, which cannot be said for successive groups doing self-assessment against the excellence model. When it first appeared, I said I had only two problems with the excellence model, content and method. Nothing has changed. The content is imbued with bad theory, and the method is not a reliable nor valid method for understanding and thus improving performance.